Hey everyone, Andrew here. So it is the holiday season once again. So the last couple years I've done a look into made-for-TV Christmas films that I would recommend. I didn't mean to make this a long-running thing, but it is still like some of my higher watched videos is me talking about made-for-TV Christmas films and which ones I recommend and things of that nature. So I'm here again to do that. Originally it was like, okay, am I going to do this at all? Because I couldn't even really come up with too many that I really wanted to talk about. And then when I actually started digging into it and looking and trying to find some, I ended up finding too many I wanted to talk about. I ended up picking up 5. And then as I was getting ready to actually rewatch them and go through them and make sure I remember them pretty well, I kept having this 6th one that just kept pushing its way into my brain, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll let this one in, I'll take out one of the other. Nope, I don't want to take out any of the others. So I will be doing 6 films this year, and they're from a wide range of things. I got a couple Hallmarks, a couple ABC Families, and one that I have no idea who it was made for. Kind of all over the place. A lot of them are going to be on the older side, although I threw in one that was more recent. I enjoy doing these lists, and I'm glad that these are some of my most watched videos for this channel, because I do legitimately think that Christmas films, even the made-for-TV ones, have merits to them. There's a lot of bad ones, but there are some that are worth seeking and looking and finding out. So today I'll be talking about 6 that I recommend. So this is 6 more made-for-TV Christmas films that I recommend. Number 1 I'll be talking about is Desperately Seeking Santa. So this is an ABC Family film from 2011. I'm not calling it Freeform because A, this was made when it was ABC Family, and B, Freeform is a terrible name. It's dumb. But it is what it is. It stars Laura Vandervoot as Jennifer Walker, who is a PR manager at a aging mall in Boston, and she is trying to keep this mall in business and keep her, all the people that she works with and all the people that she cares about employed. And she goes to the head office and is talking to the main bosses, and they're like, we need these malls to do really well, so I'm going to be doing a contest. Like, whoever does extremely well and sells the best is going to get a promotion, and whoever has the least, well, your mall may or may not be closed down. Jennifer is now like, okay, so I got to find a way to make money and bring people into our mall. And she goes to visit 2 of her friends that one run this clothing stores in there, these 2 gay guys. And there's this huge line of people to go into this store. And it turns out, because there's a bunch of male models there, basically without their shirts on, helping sell the product. And she gets the bright idea of, hey, what if I do that? Instead of having the normal mall Santa that we always have, what if we have a contest and we have a hunky Santa for Christmas? They do a performance, they make themselves a big deal, we get them a special Santa outfit, and then all of the people can come and sit on hunky Santa's lap and make their requests for Christmas. The day that the contest is supposed to start, she goes to the local coffee cart, and basically there's a big long line of people there, but she just skips it and goes straight up to the guy, and he's like, oh, your normal coffee isn't ready yet, give me a moment, I'll get it prepped. One of the guys in line, a guy named David Moretti, is like, lady, there's literally a line of like 15 of us, you can't just cut in front. And she gets mad at him, he gets mad at her, it's a whole kerfuffle, and turns out that he is also competing in the Hunky Santa competition. And there are 3 judges for this one, including us, Jennifer, and she's very much against David succeeding in it because she thinks he's a phony, and she's just still mad at him for the whole coffee kerfuffle. But the other 2 love David because he's very honest and very straightforward. He's like, I'm doing this not for the money, but for my mom, because my mom loved Christmas and she just passed, and this is my way of trying to keep connected to her. He ends up winning the contest, and on the day that he's supposed to start and do that, he does his big performance, and he starts to do this, to have the people come sit on his lap, and there's this older woman that ends up having an attack and collapses, and he performs CPR on her and revives her and keeps her alive. Turns out he is training to be an EMT and is in medical school. Jennifer realizes that she may have been judging him too harshly, and she gets to know him a little bit better. It turns out that he works part-time at his family's pizzeria that is on the verge of being shut down because a big developer is coming in to demolish the whole space and build something new. Jennifer starts really having a connection to David, and they start, having real feelings for each other when Jennifer finds out that the person buying the land and going to demolish it is her bosses. And now she's caught in the conundrum because she's trying to keep the jobs for everyone in the mall, but she also wants to help save the pizzeria and, figure out a way to balance and make it all work. And it's just this really sweet, fun, kind of lighthearted fluff for the most part, but it's just this really creative, interesting story with these two really likable leads. I like the clash between the two. I think that them disliking each other works well in this one. Like, it actually makes 100% sense that these two people would not like each other right away, because he sees her as privilege and she sees him as a pain. But then them figuring out the balance and making it work. They also have really good chemistry. I like the actors in it. Laura Vandervoort is most remembered for being Supergirl on the Smallville television show. And Nick Zano, like, when I was watching, I'm going, why does he look so familiar? And it clicked almost immediately. I was like, oh yeah, he was Steel in the Legends of Tomorrow. And it's kind of funny to have two CW superheroes in this older Christmas film together. And this is one I found on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. It's got a decent-ish quality to it. It's got a really good story. I really like the cast. It's interesting to see this movie where it's kind of like girls gazing at men in a sexual way. Like, you don't get that very often, and it's kind of like, oh, is that how you see us staring at you to an extent? It's just really fun, really creative, really interesting, with a lot of heart. Something a little less lighthearted, we have Hallmark's November Christmas. This came out in 2010. It's part of the Hallmark Hall of Fame. Which, it's like, usually if it's in the Hallmark Hall of Fame, it has a decent level of quality to it. So this story takes place in a small Rhode Island community where you have this family where you have the dad, Tom, played by John Corbett, and the mom, Beth, played by Sarah Paulson. And they have two kids, one a little girl who's about 8 years old, named Vanessa, and a younger brother who's about 4 or 5. And Vanessa has this life-threatening illness that is slowly eating away at her, and they're worried that she's not going to make it through the year. The dad and the mom are having trouble dealing with this, and because the mom is very worried and very, that, and the dad is like, it's going to be fine, she's going to be fine. Meanwhile, he's also going to the local neighborhood farm and talking to the neighbor, Jess, who is played by Sam Elliott, and inquiring when they're going to have pumpkins, because it is currently like August, and the pumpkins aren't going to be grown until October. But he has this idea of like, I want to celebrate the holidays with my kid before it's too late. So he has this idea of like speeding up the process, so having Halloween in September, having Thanksgiving in October, and then having Christmas in November. And Jess Sanford gets really attached to this and really likes the kids and likes the family, so he gets one of his friends to help him, and they drive over to a nearby pumpkin park and get as many pumpkins as they can get.
Let's move up the holidays. We'll move up Halloween, then the next holiday, then the next. As many as we can give her for however long.
All this time you've been cheering us on, you don't think she's gonna make it.
What's wrong with creating a little happiness for our daughter right now?
Meanwhile, the entire town starts to find out about the little girl and start trying to help out.
If they need any takeout meals or anything, let me know.
Same here. That's what it's all about, huh? People reaching out.
Yeah.
The little girl, Vanessa, ends up befriending this teenager named Tammy, who is working at her dad's diner against her will kind of thing. But she has this desire that she really wants to write a kid's book. And so she ends up writing a kid's book about what's going on with Vanessa, and Vanessa does all of the picture drawings for inside the book about this story. And it's all basically about the town coming together to help support this family and connect to this family. And there's a point where in November the family had to go to the hospital, and it was a really rough and very tough scenario. But as they're driving back home after the end, they drive through the town, and the entire town is lit up with Christmas lights, and it is this magical, beautiful moment. And the entire story is just this strong, heart-wrenching, beautiful, sad, but uplifting story. I'm going to spoil a little bit. It's 100% happy ending for this one. If you pay attention, you can kind of tell, because the framework of the story is that this is a woman reading a book that she wrote for children, and she said that this is inspired by her life.
What's the book about?
It's about me and a town.
Like here?
Think at first that it is Tammy reading the story, but it is actually an adult Vanessa telling the story. Basically, the family's been together every year and have this beautiful ceremony stuff. It's just heart-wrenching and beautiful, and you really feel the depths and the anguish of it. And it's got a really strong cast. I mean, you got Sam Elliott as the neighbor farmer who tries to help out, which Sam Elliott is excellent in pretty much everything that he's in. He's just got that voice that makes every film just automatically better. You had John Corbett as the dad, who's most remembered as the other main love interest from Sex and the City, the one that wasn't Mr. Big, and also the husband from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And then you have Sarah Paulson as the mom, and Sarah Paulson is most remembered for Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip and American Horror Stories. And they both give like these excellent performances of these parents trying to deal with this horrible situation. And everyone has these backstories and this thing that they're trying to figure out. Like Sam Elliott's character, it's like him and his wife are going through the loss of their child some years ago, and even his friend is dealing with the loss of his wife, and you can tell that they are all like people that are hurt and sad and are trying to give any hope, any lightness they can to this family in their time of need. And it's just heartwarming and beautiful and really well told. It is legitimately one of Hallmark's best films ever made. It's a rough watch some of the time, but it has so much good and heart to it that it's well worth looking for. We then have Snow from 2004. This was an ABC family film. Santa Claus-centric film, and basically it stars Tom Cavanaugh as Nick Snowden, who is the son of Santa Claus. During his first Christmas that he's supposed to be in charge after his father passing, he goes to his barn and is feeling the reindeer, and he's like, hey, where's Buddy? Where's the newest reindeer who's supposed to be part of the team? And we cut to Buddy being out in the middle of the wilderness, where he gets tracked by this hunter known as Buck Seeger. And Buck Seeger takes Buddy and gives him to a zoo that is being run by one of his former love interests, a girl named Sandy Brooks, who he's trying to get back together with. She doesn't give him the time of day because she knows he's full of a lot of things. Full of himself, mostly. Nick goes to the zoo, which is in San Ernesto, to try and rescue Buddy, but upon getting there, has had a really hard time with doing that, and he ends up seeing and falling in love with Sandy Brooks. So he ends up moving into her boarding house, where he befriends all of the neighbors and gets to know them all really well, including a young kid named Hector, who figures out that he is Santa and wants to help him, rescue Buddy and save Christmas in exchange for, good gifts and stuff to get his mom. And Nick is trying to rescue Buddy, but he's also trying to get closer to Sandy, and he keeps getting into these crazier scenarios, and Buddy starts showing signs of him being a flying reindeer. He starts jumping the fence, and shortly after jumping, he can start flying. Buck ends up seeing the jump and, realizes that there's something special about this reindeer, and he's like, oh, I have a big game hunter who wants to hunt something unique. This is something unique. So he kidnaps Buddy and takes him to go be taken by the big hunter. Nick, now needs to get Sandy to help him, so he takes her to the North Pole and reveals who he is and where he comes from and what's going on. She agrees to help him, and they get help from Hector and his mom Lorna, who is a post office worker, and they go and rescue Buddy. Nick reveals that he is in love with Sandy and he wants her to go with him to the North Pole. But if she goes with him, they will be at the North Pole for a year, because he can only leave the North Pole for 1 week of the year, from the week before Christmas to Christmas Eve. On Christmas Day, he goes back to the North Pole and they disappear for the year. And Sandy cannot bring herself to leave everything that she's known to go with Nick. So they separate, and Nick goes about his journeys, giving up all these gifts. Sandy goes home, goes into her bedroom, and finds this China doll, which she had had as a kid, and she told him about, and he'd given to her, and she basically holds it. And Nick ends up landing right in front of the house, and he's like, I don't know how I'm still here, but I had a feeling I needed to come here. And she runs over and hugs him, and they get in the sled and they go off to the North Pole together. Happy ending. And this is a fun, goofy, creative, unique, interesting film. There's a lot of like the son of Santa getting his first time being Santa kind of films. And this to me is one of my favorites. Like, I put this up there with like the Santa Claus as one of them. Like this, a lot of that has to do with like Tom Cavanaugh as Nick Snowden is just excellent in this film. Like, he's most famous now for playing Harrison Wells on the Flash series, but this is the film I first saw him in, and I've loved him in everything I've seen him since this.
Most of the stuff you hear about Santa Claus, it's you know, it's myth, they're made up, fabrication. You know, for example, all the little elves running around helping Santa, pure 19th century invention, and for my money, actually a little bit creepy. And you know, when I laugh, there's no bowl full of jelly. I don't shake like a bowl full of jelly. I mean, look at me.
Like, he always tends to give 110%, even like in the Yogi Bear movie where he's like has nothing to work with. But he gives it this heart and energy and life, and I love the way he plays this character as this naive, kind of childish guy that has the best heart. I love the fact that anytime that he would going to like swear, instead of swearing, he would say like something Christmassy related, like, oh, jingle bells, and or you know, oh, gumdrop pudding.
Nick's a new tenant.
Nick. Nice storm.
Think you jumped?
Oh, good eggnog. Great. North, what are you guys doing here? Now.
Like, it's just cute and charming, and I love the lore for this one. Like, they give a really interesting idea of where Santa came from, where it's like, he was, in olden times, he was this rich, arrogant, king-like character who had a visitor beg him for food, and he sent them away, and the beggar turned out to be a wizard, and the wizard cursed him and sent him to the North Pole, where he would disappear for the year and would only appear for 1 week out of the year with a giant sack full of everything that he had, and he had to give every single piece of his wealth away. But through giving away his possessions, he slowly developed of appreciation for the smiles that he was bringing for people and what it made him feel. And he started to enjoy it and started to look forward to it and was worried that he would eventually run out of things, but his sack kept just making more and more and more. The objective was never empty.
This was the power of that spell. And it was this spell that was passed on from generation to generation, just as it was passed from my father to me. That's how I became Santa Claus.
And it does some interesting stuff with the mythos with that. Like, Santa has specific powers that he can use for certain things. He can travel through mirrors. His sack, basically, if you put one item in, you can pull out an infinite number of said item out of the sack. So he doesn't have any elves in that nature. He makes the toys himself and puts one in the bag, and then he can give that out to everybody.
It's actually pretty neat. Yeah. There's always enough.
It's really cute. It's really charming. It's got some really fun aesthetics to it. The two leads have really good chemistry. I like all of the supporting cast. Like Buck Seeger is really funny in this you kind of hate him but you kind of love him sort of way. It is charming, it is sweet, it is fun. It does have a sequel called Snow 2 Brain Freeze. It's sadly not good. Like, it's basically the next year, Nick goes out before the, Christmas Eve stuff and gets knocked on the head and gets amnesia. And so he's stumbling around, and then Sandy has to try to find him, and she ends up enlisting Buck to help her find Nick. And Nick ends up finding this club that his parents were involved with. It's not good. It's really not. Like, he's still great in it, but the plot is awful. And it's a shame, because I would have loved more stories from this Santa, but we got one really bad one right away. But this is one you can find on YouTube. It's probably find on a couple different streaming sites. Creative, it's got some good ideas. It does have a little bit of a cheaper quality to it, but it has a lot of heart and warmth that I truly love in this one. One of the most interesting, unique interpretations of Santa I've seen, and I really just enjoy watching it and experience it. Legit up there with some of my favorites. Next we have One December Night. This is a Hallmark film from 2021. Stars Peter Gallagher as Mike Sullivan and Bruce Campbell as Steve Bedford, and they are two rock stars who became famous with their big hit One December Night. And they were basically like one of the biggest musical acts in the world. They became uber famous, but then they ended up breaking up 10 years ago after a whole bunch of squabbles and fighting. And Peter Gallagher's character went into recluse, back into his house called Big Red, and never came out very often. And then Bruce Campbell's character kept the show going by himself, but he refused to play certain songs, specifically their big hit One December Night. They have not spoken since. They have agreed to do a one-time show together for Christmas. Gallagher's character is only agreeing to do this at all because he is low on money and he's gonna lose the house Big Red if he doesn't do the show. But he's very against doing the show and doing anything that involves him going out and being a celebrity and being famous anymore. Bruce Campbell's character is doing that because he is desperate for more money and desperate to keep his career going. And he has a residency in Vegas on the line if he can get the show to go on without a hitch. But he has his own level of stubbornness and not wanting to work with Peter Gallagher's character. So their two kids end up kind of having to run the show. Bruce Campbell's kid, Jason, is basically his dad's manager and is trying to do right by him. Peter Gallagher's daughter, Eloise, is trying desperately to keep the show going and to get it all going because basically she has an artist that she's trying to help promote into the big leagues, and if she gets this show to be successful, then that will happen. And so she's trying to do that despite the fact that she has been estranged from her father for many years and is not wanting to deal with any of the family drama or any of the connection that comes from being his daughter. And the two leads are basically bickering for most of it because they don't like each other and are trying to figure out how to make this work.
Haven't seen you for 5 years and that's all you got to say?
Hello, Steve. You lost some hair. Happy?
Peter Gallagher's character eventually does agree to do it, but he refuses to perform their big hit One December Night because he wrote that song for his wife and doesn't want to deal with that. The people running the show, the sponsor and everything is like, we need that song has to be performed. So Bruce Campbell's character comes up with the idea of like, well, I can perform it, we'll record it, and we'll just insert it in if we can't convince Peter Gallagher's character to do the song. And this, of course, Peter Gallagher's character finds out about this and is very mad and against doing the show altogether, but eventually it gives in and agrees, and they perform the show together, and it's a huge success. So this is a really star-studded, excellent, well-made Christmas film. It's legitimately one of the best films Hallmark has made in the last 5 years. like, the fact that they got 2 stars of this quality to do this Hallmark film is quite amazing, because with Hallmark films, like, you get celebrities, but they're usually lower card celebrities. Like, you get, like, Lacey Chabert, who's best known for being one of the mean girls from Mean Girls. She's not the lead, but she was a mean girl, and that's what she's known for. But to get, you know, Bruce Campbell, Ash himself from The Evil Dead, as this character, and then to get Peter Gallagher, who's also a very huge celebrity. I most remember him from being the dad from the OC. Like, these are guys that don't have to do a Hallmark film. They have enough clout and enough talent and enough stuff that they can coast by on doing direct-to-video stuff and get away with it. But it's like, it's cool because they got the beginning where they're showing, like, the MTV Where Are They Now type of thing, where they're showing clips of them and pictures of them, and they just use actual footage of these guys at movie premieres and things like that. And it's like, yeah, it actually works really well. And they have a really good chemistry and a really good dynamic. Like, they're people that drive each other up the wall, but they also know they can rely on each other, and that when they mesh well, they work really well. But they chose to do this unique, interesting, creative little Hallmark film that has some really good singing, some really good music, and really good performances. Both of these leads have stuff that they get to work with and really stretch themselves with. Peter Gallagher's character is dealing with the loss of his wife, but also dealing with his previous substance abuse issues and his estrangement with his daughter because of that.
I was not the father you deserved.
Dad.
When your mother was in the hospital, I couldn't handle it. And she saw the way I was drinking, and she asked me to stay away until I could stop thinking about myself and start thinking about you. By then, it was too late. When she was gone.
And then you have Bruce Campbell's character, who is going through the early stages of Alzheimer's and is having a hard time remembering things and is trying to keep it on the down low, but he knows about it, and he's, you know, trying to work through it, but it's getting harder and harder. Like, it has some really heavy, deep moments to it, but also some really nice, lighthearted brevity moments to it. They're excellent in this film. It is a little sad, though, they are not the focus of this film. They are the stars, but the leads of the film are their kids. And the kids are fine. Like, they have moments in them. Their chemistry works pretty decently, though I'm not going to say it's amazing. But there are times with them where you're kind of like, can we get back to the dads? Because they're a bit more interesting than these kids. But they work out really well and balance the show really well. I love the music in the show. All of the singing, all the songs in it are excellent. Like, the actual One December Night song is really fun and really creative.
Built a home and family together for eternity. Ever since that one December night.
It makes me laugh because at the same year this came out, Hallmark came out with a film called Christmas in Tahoe, which the entire plot of that film was, hey, you, person in band, needs to come up with a brand new, never before heard Christmas song. And so the whole movie is about him trying to figure out what song to write for that. And in the end, he performs Shake Up the Happiness, which is a song by Train from over a decade ago. That, granted, not a lot of people know, because you have to either really know the band Train or you have to be a really big fan of Christmas. And I'm a bit of both, so that's kind of how I found it. And it just made me laugh so hard when they did that. I'm like, you really couldn't come up with an original song for this at all? You just pretended to make a new song? Whereas, like, this one has a couple new songs that you've never heard that are actually pretty decent and pretty well done. The two leads in this have a very Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young feel to them, or Simon and Garfunkel kind of feel to them in their performances. They work off each other really well. It balances extremely well. I love the storytelling. It's legitimately the best film Hallmark has made in probably 10 years. Like, it's one of their best ones ever they've done. Next, we have Undercover Christmas. This was a 2003 American-Canadian film. I can't tell you what station it was made for, because I looked. I tried a couple different things. It's shown up on Hallmark. It's shown up on Lifetime. I have a feeling it was made for a Canadian channel and that just kind of got shipped around. But story of Undercover Christmas is you got a woman named Brandy O'Neill, played by Jamie Gertz, who is a cocktail waitress, a girl who's basically been living on her own since she was like 16. Her mom, went from guy to guy to guy trying to fill a void, and so Brandy's been on her own since then. She has gotten this job as a cocktail waitress and has a billionaire boyfriend named Scott, and Scott promised her, it's like, oh, we'll spend Christmas together. So she's like, oh, I get to go up to hang out with your family for Christmas. That's gonna be great. And he's like, no, that's not happening.
Oh, Zelda, that's so sweet of you, but Scotty invited me to be with his family this year. Have you talked to your mom yet?
About what?
About what I should bring for Christmas.
Look, honey, I'm sorry, but it's just not gonna happen.
But you invited me.
Maybe next year.
But I'm good enough to take home to your penthouse, but I'm not good enough to take home to your parents.
And she gets pissed and leaves work and goes outside, where she runs into Jake Cunningham, who is a FBI agent who has been following Scott's ship for a long time and knows he's into tax evasion and tax fraud to screw people out of money. And he tries to convince Brandy to be his witness and to testify against her boyfriend. She isn't 100% set on doing it because she still kind of loves the guy despite him being an awful person, but she agrees to do so, and he goes to take her into a safe house to give her into protective custody. On the way to the safe house, he gets a call from his mother that his father had a heart attack, and he is like, okay, I'll take you to the safe house and then they'll go. And she's like, no, you gotta go home, you gotta go see your dad. It's gonna be fine, it's a short stop, you need to go do this. So they drive over to the parents' house, and he's like, okay, so we'll tell them we're dating, and we'll just get in and out of this as fast as we can.
Thank goodness you've come.
How is he?
And you brought company. How nice.
Yeah, Mom, this is Brandy.
So he gets into the house and tries to go see the dad, and the mom's like, oh no, he's fine. I told you that to get you to come home for Christmas, because you worked every Christmas for the last few years.
Mom, what do you mean Dad is fine?
I lied to you. I just wanted you home for Christmas.
Lied?
You deserved it. And once I had determined that, it was really quite easy.
And of course Jake is pissed off about that and wants to leave immediately, but Brandy is like, ooh, this house is really nice, I really enjoy this, can we stay? And Jake ends up agreeing to it. They end up sharing the room, but he sleeps on the floor while she sleeps in the bed. And so they basically end up posing as a couple, which drives the mom and the sister up the wall because she's very much of a lower class than they are. They are a rich, snobby family that is all about their image and stuff. But as Brandy gets to know them and they get to know her, they start to develop these connections and these understandings of each other, and they end up becoming really liking each other and appreciating of each other. End up developing a real friendship there. But then you have Jake, who's dealing with, one, trying to protect Brandy, but also starting to have some feelings for her. But he also has to deal with his drama with his father, who is very strict and very stern and very against his choices that Jake has done. He's like, you could have been somebody, you could have been a lawyer, you could have been a judge. Instead, you became an FBI agent that doesn't even get credit for the things that you do.
Mansions, all with their investors' money.
Look at him. He always stands behind somebody else.
You're in the background while other people are in the front, type of thing. And Jake, is trying to convince his father, explain to his father, it's like, this is my choice, this is what I love to do, and you have to accept that, and you have to understand that. And it leads to some very dramatic, very intense scenes. Jake and Brandy end up getting found out, and Jake takes Brandy back to the city, and Brandy is visited by her boyfriend. He's trying to convince her not to testify against him, and she has to decide whether she's going to choose to be with the guy that she still kind of loves, or do the right thing and maybe have a chance with this other guy that she's starting to have feelings for. And it's this really sweet, interesting, creative, unique kind of story. Like, there's been a couple of this nature where the two people that are not a couple pretend to be a couple plot has been done to death, but this one at least comes from a place of relatively earnest, and you kind of understand why. It's like, it's not to trick people, it's that they have to keep a cover type of thing. And it works really well. I like the chemistry between all the cast and all the characters. Jamie Gertz is really great in this. She was most known for being the Square Pegs. She was in Less Than Zero, The Lost Boys, Twister. So lovable and likable in this, and I just love her messing with the family at points, because she knows what she looks like and she knows how they disapprove, and she just uses it to get back at them sometimes.
Jake doesn't really seem like your type.
He's silent, repressed.
Maybe that's what makes him so good in bed.
Well, it's time for bed.
Oh, he is totally obsessed with me. Good night, girls.
But she also really understands them and really grows to love them, and really has this kind heart and cares about people and puts herself out there.
One more insult and I am out of here. I spent Christmas alone in a bus station and I can do it again.
And Jake is very uptight, but like she brings out the nicer qualities in him. Has some really great heart to it, really great light to it. This is one you can find on YouTube as well, and it's very hard to find a little bit other than that YouTube recording, but I really think it's got some great storytelling and ideas, and got a little bit of that cheaper quality to it, but it does have a strong performance and a strong supporting cast that work off each other extremely well. It's just a lot of fun to watch. It's one of my favorite to go back to. And finally, we have The Christmas Card. Now, The Christmas Card is a Hallmark film from 2006. It is legitimately up there as one of my favorite Hallmark films ever made. Like, this might be my favorite Hallmark film ever made. And because this nearly made it to the list last year, it nearly made it to the list the first year. Like, I would have totally added it that first year if I hadn't had so many others that I had an easier time talking about. Because while I love this Christmas film, this is such a hard one to explain why I love this Christmas film. Because it's not necessarily an amazingly made film. The plot is rather simple, and it doesn't have like exceptional performances or exceptional cinematography or anything of that. It's just an extremely well told story that has a lot of heart to it. So the basic plot is that you have Cody Cullen, played by John Newton, who is this U.S. Army sergeant. And one year he gets a Christmas card from a fellow soldier who'd gotten a box of them from his hometown in Nevada City, California. And the card was from this woman named Faith Spellman, who basically sent a card out to a bunch of the soldiers to, wish them well and let them know that they're being thought of. And Cody develops an immediate connection to this letter and very important to it, and he keeps it with him, on him at all times. And a couple of months go by, and his fellow soldier, the one who gave him the card, ends up dying in combat. Cody is having a hard time dealing with that and figuring that out, so he is sent on leave, basically, to get his head straight and figure things out and go home. Since he has no real family, his dad died during the Vietnam War, and his mom passed away after that. He ends up going to Nevada City to tell the soldier's fiance, what happened. She is understanding and forgives him and is completely it's not your fault. It is, it is what it is. Before Cody decides to leave this town, he ends up stopping in the local diner, orders a cheeseburger with curly fries, extra crispy, and a hot chocolate with marshmallows. Goes to the restroom when the food is set down, and in comes Faith, played by Alice Evans. And Faith sees the plate on there, and it's exactly what she orders every time she's in the diner, and she had ordered ahead. So she's like, oh, this must be my order. And so she starts eating to it, and then, of course, Cody comes out, and it's like, oh, this is yours. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to. And he's just smiling. He's like, oh, no, it's okay, it's fine. She leaves embarrassed, but he's just smiling and laughing about it. He goes to church the next day and ends up running into Faith's father, a man named Luke, who is played by Ed Asner, who is also a former Army soldier. They hit it off right away and are really good friends. Luke almost ends up getting hit by a car, but Cody jumps in and ends up saving him. Out of thanks and wanting to give him a place to stay that he doesn't have to pay for, Luke tells Cody that he can stay with them at his house, and if he helps them with the logging company that they run. And he agrees. So Cody ends up, joining the house and helping out with the logging business, and he finds out that Faith has a longtime boyfriend named Paul, who has just come back from traveling, because he travels all the time, and they've just been like ships kind of passing the night. Like when he's around, but he isn't. And Paul and Cody immediately have a rivalry, of course. Cody ends up revealing to Luke that about the card and how Faith kind of is the reason he's here.
Well, I got this Christmas card.
What?
It's been a real lifeline for me.
She brought you here.
Don't you think it's a little odd that a grown man would travel this far based on a card?
It doesn't matter how you got here. It's just great that you're here with us now.
But, he can't see anything coming of it, but he just can't seem to walk away yet. Paul is very much into his business and keeping his business going and doing all these things, whereas Faith is way more into her family and their business and keeping that. So they're basically, two people going in completely different paths, but think that they belong together to an extent. Cody ends up falling more in love with Faith, and he tries to ignore his feelings, and she tries to ignore her feelings that she's starting to have for him. And they end up accidentally sharing a kiss. But pretty much immediately after that, Paul shows up and asks Faith to marry him, and she says yes. So on Christmas Eve, Cody runs into Paul in front of the church. Cody tells Paul that he is in love with Faith, but he accepts the fact that she is going to marry Paul. And he hopes that Paul is marrying Faith for the right reasons. Everyone goes into the church, and Cody starts out in there, but he ends up leaving really quickly. Faith, despite being next to Paul, spends the time looking around for where Cody is. Paul notices this, and they step outside, and they decide that this is not a relationship that's working out because they have different wants and different goals. Paul wants to travel the world and, live in Nepal, and Faith wants to stay in Nevada City with her family and do the job that she loves. So they end up splitting in an amicable way.
I'm so sorry.
So the next day, Faith goes to find Cody. She ends up finding this letter on a Christmas card that explains, that he fell in love with her both when he got the letter from her in Afghanistan, but also when he ran into her at the diner, and basically says his goodbyes. Faith is like, no, I have to find him. Where is he? And her dad is like, he's probably at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Since his dad died in Vietnam, there's a good chance Cody's there. Faith rushes out, goes over, finds Cody at the memorial, is, mad at him for not saying goodbye, but they end up embracing and having a kiss, and it ends in this lovely happily ever after moment. Again, this is one where I'm like, I love this film. I do think it's a great film. I can't fully explain why. It's this really beautiful, well-told, simple love story, but it has such humanity and heart and depth to it. It's got such a nice, loving characters. You got Ed Asner as the dad, who's just perfect in every scene that he's in. He's just so charming and likable, and
Offside here! Well, I wish I could play. They'd probably kill me.
Come on, Dad.
What?
The way Uncle Richard plays, we could use a referee.
That's an idea. I'd love to blow the whistle on him.
Come on.
Such a heartwarming performance. Like, you really get the character and really grow to like him, and you understand that everything he's doing is, trying to help his daughter, even if she doesn't see it that way. This is a love triangle that works really well, because while her and Paul have the longer relationship, they don't actually have much in common. Whereas her and Cody have so much more in common and things that they agree on. I also like the fact that they don't make Paul an entirely terrible person. Like, it's so easy in these films for them to make Paul like this monster who wants to steal her away from her family and is just there for the money or just there for power. And it's like, no, he's a guy that legitimately likes her, likes his work more than he likes her, but doesn't realize that right away. And he's genuinely a good guy. Like,
well, believe it or not, later today I'm heading back up to help face silk Christmas trees.
You must really love this girl.
There's another guy trying to move in on her.
Well, this should seal the deal.
There's a scene in this where they're donating things for the charity, and Paul ends up going and buying a whole bunch of the stuff to donate for the charity. And not because he was trying to impress Faith, although I'm pretty sure he was happy for that to be a side consequence, but he was legitimately trying to do a good thing. Granted, Cody looks better in this scenario because he donates stuff that's actually important to him and was his actual, some of his few belongings. But it doesn't make Paul the bad guy. Like, he is not the right guy, but he is not the bad guy. And I really appreciate that in these films because it's so easy for them to do the opposite. And I like the fact that it's an amicable breakup. It isn't like her dumping him or him dumping her. It's just this like mutual, this isn't working, is it? And I always appreciate that in these kind of stories, like, because so many of them, they go for the easy, no, this guy's just an asshole thing. And it's like, no, that's not always the reality. Sometimes it's just you're with someone and you think it works, but in reality it just doesn't. And I love the storytelling, I love the filming, I like the way it's just beautifully shot. It's got some really good warmth and heart to it. I think they did a very good job with what they have, and it is legitimately one of my favorite Christmas films. I watch it almost every year. It's just close to my heart. But that is just my opinion. What do you all think? Have you seen some of these films? Have you never heard of some of these films? Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all next time. Bye.
They're singing Deck the Halls, but it's not like Christmas at all.